Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm going to start sharing my screen so that you could look at the slides that I prepared for the session. And it's such a wonderful opportunity to be able to share the experience that we've had in working with corporations, in helping them for making changes that they need to in their leadership and in their culture. So the approach that we're going to look at today is integrated in that it involves everything from coaching, training, use of tools, and consulting. So as we're waiting, some of the people are coming in. If you want to pop into the chat, whether you're a consultant, a trainer, a coach, all of the above, just pop it in there at the beginning. It's nice to know what your backgrounds are, so I can also try to taper what I say to your needs. So just a bit about me very quickly. I am an organizational psychologist, and I have a specialization in an area called instructional systems design, which isn't known by many people, just like performance technology is also known. Performance technology we'll be talking about more about today. But so I'll only define instructional design is a systematic approach to designing training programs to be able to guarantee results. So I'm American. You probably picked that up from my accent, although I live and work in Italy, and this has been now for over 30 years. I have also lived and worked besides the US, where I began my career and did all my studies and I grew up. I also worked in Australia and in Singapore, and now, as I said, I'm living in Italy, in particular in Milan, Italy, but we work all over EMEA. So I'm also an entrepreneur. I started Performance Technology Solutions in 2002, and we have an important client portfolio of multinational companies, and we'll be sharing with you two of many client cases that we have, and I'll be giving you a link at the end of the session so that you can see more cases if that's the thing that interests you, because it's a very pragmatic approach that I'll be using with discussing with you today. And we are partners of Facet 5 in Italy, and I'm a master certifier of Facet 5 since 2008. So there's a lot of experience there that I'm hoping to share with you. Also done some work as an adjunct professor for a number of international institutions. So you might want to take a picture of this QR code, or from the chat, you'll find in the chat, there's the link that you see here on the slide. So take a picture of that, because we're going to do a very brief polling, because today, as you know, we'll be talking about change. And change is one of those things that impacts all of us. So we're going to begin today by asking you some questions about change and how you react to change, because it helps us to understand how to manage it from a psychological and organizational point of view. So the first question, so hopefully you've been able to get that QR code, and I'm watching as you respond, and you can answer as many of the following that you agree with for yourself. Think about when someone told you that you had to change, you had to make a change. How did it make you feel? You might have had a number of feelings, but we want to see broadly for most of you how you generally react when you get asked to change something. And so this will help us all to understand and get in the mood and ready for the discussion about transformational change in organizations. So I see 13 responses so far, and we have 23 people online. So I'll leave that open just a bit so you can continue to respond. We're all answering the question about how we react to change, and what is the emotion that comes up for us when we have to change something. We're not talking about when we choose to change. We're talking about when the external forces require that we make a change. Everybody reacts differently, and it's interesting to note and to discuss about it, which is why I'm asking you the question. So I'm seeing about 22 responses. I know it's not everybody, but at least it's the number of people we have together with us today. So we're going to look at the way that you've reacted. So many of you are growth mindsets. You get excited and you're open to the possibilities. The majority who are online today, at least in this session. Many people, as we do see also from the reaction of this group, feel fearful that perhaps they won't be able to change, or they don't like the change, and they might become resistant because of the fear. And this is an important emotion that we need to understand when we're working with organizations and with individuals about this need to change, and how we can assist them in overcoming and breaking through this limiting emotion that they have, because it is a real emotion. We have to recognize it, and we have to support people so that they can work through and transform through the change. Many people lose energy on it. They lack emotion, as we see also in this group. So thank you for being candid. And all of the questions, by the way, are anonymous. And this is the reason I've used the tool, so that you could be honest in your answers. And so I appreciate you doing so. So as a result of those feelings, were you able to make the change? This is the question at hand. So please feel free to answer that. I see people are starting to answer so far. I see a couple of responses. We're a bit far from the number of people in the room, so I'm curious to see the outcome. And I love using polling. It's a great way to engage people, especially online. And we get people to reflect. So it's such an important aspect of the way that we design the interventions that we do. So I will actually share, even though not everybody has finished, so we might see it move a little bit, but I wanted to share the responses with you. So as a result of those feelings, so the majority of people said they were excited. So look at, isn't that interesting? The people who are open to change and get excited about it are also able to make the change. And those who perhaps are fearful or have low energy, the resistant, they might find they're not able to make the change, at least not so easily, perhaps as those who are open to it. So I think we have an unusual group here today, but I'm not surprised, because we are at the Facet 5 Live, and that means that a lot of you are practitioners, so you're coaches, you're consultants, you might have that approach to change, as I do. I'm excited usually about the opportunities for change. I'm one of those. I was chatting with Sonia at the beginning before we started, one of those early adopters of technology, because I love it. I believe that we can use it for good. So today's agenda, we're going to be looking at organizational dynamics. So I'll give you a grounding in that very quickly, just from a novel point of view, because probably many of you are also working as I do in consulting to organizations, coaching and training. And we'll give you two real client cases that we're going to discuss and exchange with you, and also the lessons that we learned from these particular cases, but also in general. I'll try to leave some time for a Q&A at the end. So let's get started. Just for those of you, especially that may not have a background in working with organizations, maybe you work with individuals, I wanted to get a brief foot in the door when it comes to organizational dynamics, and why I believe that we need a systemic or systematic approach to work with the chaos that we often see in the organization. Some of you might be familiar with this very famous parable, the parable about the 6 blind people who are going to, and we see them with the actually blindfolds on here, but let's say that they're blind, and they're being asked, what is it that we are encountering? So just like in an organization, each one of these people, they're touching the elephant from a different point of view. They're looking or touching and trying to get to know. So think of it as our filter in the organization. Our filter could be the way that we show up, our role, where we are in our function in the organization. So that's the analogy that we're thinking about. And what happens? Well, one of the blind people touches the tusk and says, no, it's a spear. It's a spear that we're coming in contact with. And of course, then we've got the person who's touching the tail. And he says, no, it's not a tusk. It's a rope that we're in touch with. And so the things that they both see are different aspects. The person then, on the other hand, who is touching the trunk says, no, you've got it wrong. Absolutely. It's a snake. Oh my goodness. And he's afraid of the snake. So, I could explain more about it, but you're getting the idea, right? That we all see the organization from a different point of view. Few in the organization, only those perhaps, and we hope at the very top, have a vision of the entire organization and what happens. So this dilemma actually brings us to create a need an approach which is systematic and systemic so that we can get an idea of the big picture. And this is an important grounding to what I'm going to share with you about the cases today. So I told you that I am a performance technologist. I'm certified in that. And what exactly is performance technology? It's not something that I made up. It is a real discipline. And it's kind of like saying you're an engineer, but it's not an engineer. Maybe it's engineering of organizational performance. It's about working with organizations in a very holistic manner, using a methodology and approach which provides us the opportunity to look at how we can make improvements, which can help to align the different aspects of the organization and to look for causes when we have difficulties. So we do root cause analysis and things like that. Many of you might be working in the consulting field. You might also do similar things. And we can do all these things to help to align the organization and the people to achieving the mission and the goals. So how do we go about doing that? We use this very systematic, and systemic analysis. So when we go into a client, we generally do an overall view of the situation based on the briefing that we get from the client to be able to analyze if there is a performance issue, what could be the causes of that? And then we work in a very systematic way to provide an approach which involves many stakeholders within the organization. So we don't generally, although I must admit, often a client will insist, please do this training X. We need this X training. And then, of course, we always work with them to find out, well, what is your expectation? What will change due to this training or to this coaching? And we try to work with the top stakeholder, the top client about that. And often we're able to get them to shift and to recognize that if they want to get certain result, maybe the solution that they're proposing to us isn't going to get them the full result that they want. And therefore, if we can do an analysis with them in a systematic way, that we can help them to get a solution which is integrated and that might align more with the real needs of the organization. And therefore, we can measure an impact of what we're doing. We monitor often together with the client and measure the results that we are achieving. And this helps us to be able to get concrete results. And obviously, this is the sort of thing that, as an approach, helps us to create a stronger partnership with our clients, and which is why, on the average, most of our multinational clients that we have, we deal with them from anywhere from 5 to 10 years, not doing the same project, doing different things, but because we gain their trust and we come to meet their needs, we become a trusted partner in their performance. So they ask us to do many things. So for those of you who haven't thought about it before, I just wanted to give you a chance to meditate on the fact that, leadership, culture, and performance, how do they fit together? They're certainly directly linked. Leaders and their leadership, the way that they show up and the way they propose the culture to be and the way they model it has a huge impact. And the way that we communicate about our culture, our organizational culture, has a huge impact on how the rest of the organization actually follows through. So that's an important aspect of it. Both when we can get a strong leadership, which is in alignment with the culture that they want to promote, we can actually see that companies that have that high level of culture, they move more quickly. The literature tells us that, you know, that from good to great, you might have seen this book or many other Harvard Business Review articles that talk about you know, culture, and a strong organizational culture helps us to move much more quickly than when we're not aligned. So this is an important aspect of what we'll be looking at today. So now we're going to begin with one of our cases, and what we're talking about is a global clinical diagnostic machinery company. So we're talking about a geographical area of EMEA and also India. Okay, the organization is wider than that, but this is the part of the organization that we were working with. And so I'm going to share with you everything from A to Z on that case. So this the background and on this organizational situation is that the organization, we were briefed, was working in silos between teams. This is something that you might also see. If you could pop into the chat, do you see a lot of silos happening in the companies that you're going into? Meaning that people are working in their vertical units, and no matter what the business unit may be, but they're not maybe communicating across the various units. And so within the same marketing and sales department, it was happening at this organization. There was very little awareness about being part of the same team and being interdependent and interconnected. So our big challenge and opportunity was to help people to recognize this. So we're going to, after we look at the briefing, I'm also going to share with you how do we go about managing this and improving the results they were getting. There was a lack of collaboration across teams then, and also a very competitive sort of behavior amongst them. And that became very unproductive and made it a climate of work which perhaps wasn't a good place to work. But not only that, it prevented them from reaching their common corporate goals. And in those that they were able to reach, it was slower in terms of the expectations that they had at hand. So the project objectives in particular were to be able, the importance of raising awareness. We talked about this probably every session in Fast 5 Live, we're talking about awareness. We need to raise the group's awareness about their strengths and their areas for improvement with the objective of being more constantly in collaboration and the benefits that they could achieve through the collaboration. We also looked with them at the optimizing and integrating the organizational values and in the team, and the communication that they had within silos, but also between the silos. So we worked a lot also on their active listening and their understanding and their interdependence and their issues related to trusting, because trust often is at the basis of all of these issues. If we're not trusting, we don't delegate. If we don't trust, we don't communicate. If we don't trust, we don't collaborate. And all of these, so we really have to dig deeper. We can't work at a superficial level with organizations if we want to get a real transformation. So they also needed to increase their accountability to be able to achieve higher results and to be more successful as one organization. So how did we approach this? So we worked with the director of the organization as our main stakeholder together with HR. And we're working on over a 9-month, 12 months period. And so we did our original analysis, because also here we were originally asked to do an intervention which was just about training. So often you get asked a solution rather than people or clients might not share their problems. So we tend to approach it more in a coaching format, which we ask more about the pains and the symptoms that the organization is feeling at the moment, so that we could, or observing, I shouldn't say feeling, I should say observing, so that we can work on the symptoms as opposed to just providing a solution which might not be effective. When you think about it, and this is something that we had to address as an organization early on, and even when we started the company in 2002, the importance of taking a request, but then trying to identify what the real needs are. And so in order to do that, we have to help the stakeholder, the main stakeholder, to be sensitive to they are having different pains, and those pains can be managed in different ways. And it's our ability to be able to convince the stakeholder that the commitment that they provide is critical to us being able to do an important sort of an intervention for them. So we recognize the importance for communication. Communication has to start early, it has to be strong, it has to be transparent, and it has to be throughout the organization. So from the beginning, as soon as we get a good idea in terms of the analysis of what's happening, we start preparing our communications out to the organization about our presence, how we could be working together as a partner, the impact that we'll have on them in particular, because everybody wants to know what's the impact on me. And so this is so fundamental to be able to bring to the group, to the organization. Also, we used Facet 5 in this project on a very wide basis. So we began with the administration of the Facet 5. So all of the people that were in the core group, and we're talking about 35 people approximately, from the director down to the middle manager and some of the direct reports that they had within the organization. And we used an approach with the directors and with HR. We did an individual debrief. However, due to financial budgetary issues, we did group debriefs with the rest of the group before we began to work with them as a team. It's fundamental that people get their debrief and understand their individual and raise their individual level of self-awareness before they begin to work as a team. Otherwise, they don't have the level of awareness that they need in order to be able to address and to work and to take full advantage of what we use in our Teamscape. So Teamscape is, for those of you who are not perhaps Facet 5 users, is the version of the reporting that helps us to see the dynamics of the team and how they work together. So we did these debriefs, and then after doing the debriefs and the people accepted them very well, we had a very high level of recognition that what they were reading in their reports reflected who they were. And so that's the first step. We also invite them often to ask for feedback from those who are around them, who know them best, especially when they have some kind of a doubt as to whether there was something written in the report. Does this really reflect who I am? And generally speaking, those who use that and as a feedback tool, they find that they agree afterwards that it's a stronger experience that they have with the use of the tool. So we had a fantastic opportunity. We're talking about a multinational team. They wanted to do a team building, and they decided to do it in Lisbon. And so we all went to Lisbon, and we didn't know that we were going to have a size of a room for 35 people, which is maybe, I don't know, to give you an idea, I would say like 70 square meters. And we were going to be with them for 2-3 days to do their overall debriefs. And so we started the night before sharing the results, and we had them get to know each other by doing an exercise that we invented. I believe we invented, so maybe some of you are doing the same. We call it the art gallery. So basically, everybody knows what their family is already, but the others don't know perhaps. After we've done a line dance, which many of you have probably conducted, meaning that people get to see how they position in terms of their different factors. And so they get to know each other a little bit better this way. But then we also have them do sort of a 360-degree evaluation on the spot using very simple rudimentary methods like walking around the room and having a sheet of paper that comes from the flip chart, and then putting on the flip chart when they see the name, Diane Fryman. Diane, I think you're a, entrepreneur, and I think you're and then guessing the family name. And so they get some feedback this way. It's always very interesting. And they move from one to one to get to see how the outcomes are. And it's always a very eye-opening experience, also getting the feedback this way. And people get to know each other very quickly, and they interact in a very fun way. And so we found this a very useful way. So that session, we were able to create a simulation. We did 2 simulations with the group the day after. They did the getting to know through the use facet, where we created problem solving after we did a trust building session, because that's the first thing we always do is we start with the trust building. And we do that in a number of different ways. In this closed hotel, the way we decided to do it was having them partner up, and one person was blindfolded, the other person would have to accompany their colleague and have them go through an experiential situation right there in the room. So we had spices, we had foods, we have flowers, we had all kinds of things out on the table, and the partner was supposed to conduct them through, so creating trust and showing them that they could trust them by guiding them through this session, and helping them to experience fully what was there on the table. And the 2 problem solvings that we did were the ones that, after we created trust, were fundamental for making having a transformation and a breakthrough. Basically, we created a problem solving which required that the team collaborate, otherwise they couldn't achieve the overall result. So what did they notice? That it was kind of funny that what happened during that as well, that the director, he was given instruction to work with the HR person in the problem solving to be on the other side of the analogous river, because the 4 groups had to end up on the other side of the river to join the sorry, I'm distracted a bit, to join the people on the other side. And it's kind of funny, what came up for the director is that he evidently didn't listen or didn't want to collaborate. We had to give him feedback as well at the end. And in fact, some of the issues related to the working with the director were a part of why the group was the way that they were as well. And so that was all good food for thought, and gave us opportunities to interact with the director. So after the team building, we had 2 different follow-up sessions. And through those sessions, we also monitored how they were working together. They wrote individual plans also at the end of the team building, and a group plan. So we monitored those plans in order to allow for us to be able to see the impact that we had. So you can see this sort of integrated approach. Training, we had to do a bit of coaching with the director, although we didn't do it in a formal way in this particular project, but we certainly had to give feedback and work with him throughout the project. So this is one example. The results that we were able to achieve together increased collaboration and communication reported by the teams themselves. They told us also that they were able to increase engagement, and so the engagement is very fundamental to getting accountability. And they self-reported this was occurring. They reported fewer conflicts, and also the director noticed there were fewer conflicts because the breakthrough that they made by the time we got to the lunchtime, and they did that they failed in the problem solving, but sometimes the failures are those opportunities that helps the team to become stronger, because through the debriefing process, we were able to bring them to a better understanding about that what they were doing in the simulation is what they were actually doing on the job. So that's our whole very creative and challenging approach, is that we have to find and set up the problem solving so that we can create in a how can I say, experience which everybody's observing all the behaviors, that they imitate what actually happens on the job. That therefore, since we're all observing all at the same time through the debrief, we can actually get them to move from one position of understanding of their behavior to a new understanding so that they can change their behavior. And this is the fundamental aspect of what came out of this particular project, which was amazing. Some of the individuals showed sort of a transformation in their mindset, especially those who didn't realize that their behaviors were competing, even though they might have gotten feedback previously, they perhaps didn't recognize it, but going through the simulation helped them to understand that better. So think about the questions that might be coming up in your mind. You might pop them into the chat. Sonia's going to help me to curate that chat, and so that we'll allow for time at the end. So we're doing well on time, I see. And we have the second case, very interesting case, a client also that we've been working with for at least 8 years on different sorts of interventions, whether they be coaching, training, or consulting. And it's a renewable energy company throughout, it's a global company. The background on the organizational situation as our briefing, originally when we worked with the CEO, who was considered to be a very strong technical background, but had a sort of an authoritarian approach and maybe needed assistance in his people management and communication skills. Now, this was the briefing that we received through HR because they were the ones who actually brought us into the organization, was HR. So this was the tricky bit and something interesting, and that to food for thought for those of you who do this sort of work. You'll see the solution, how we worked on it to get the CEO to come around to understand his needs so that he would be asking for coaching. So it was also a poorly coordinated team that were not meeting deadlines on time and also not hitting their objectives. So the project objectives themselves were to improve the leadership, motivation, and the team collaboration, and to increase individual accountability also in this particular case. So the approach always begins, from our point of view, we need to do a good, solid analysis so that we can understand the organization, where we're going to, the photograph of the situation at the time. We also may be doing a cause analysis to understand if there are any critical issues, to understand the critical issues can be caused by many different factors. And you can't know that until you do a proper analysis. So this helps us to then identify how we can provide a solution that will bring us to get a measurable result. And so the communication with stakeholders is fundamental and something that we always insist on doing, supporting very heavily HR and our main stakeholder in communicating out the activities that we're performing and the reason, the why, about why we're there, and so that they can come to understand that it's a benefit. As you told me in our polling at the beginning, some people are fearful. They may lack energy. They may be resistant to change. So the only way we can help them to calm their fears is to communicate in a positive and constructive way to help them to understand what's happening, how they will be affected by it, and what's expected in terms of their shift in behavior. So also again here we use facet 5, we use the full profile, and we also use Teamscape because we had the opportunity to do individual debriefs. The budget allowed for that, so that was great. We always prefer to do individual debriefs where we can because we get a higher level of acceptance and understanding and level of awareness at an individual level when we do those individual debriefs. The Teamscape came in very handy to help to understand the dynamics of the group, and was shared partially with the group because sometimes our stakeholder, our main stakeholder or main client, doesn't want to share all the details because of privacy related issues. We find this a lot in also in Italy, that people tend to not want to share too much information. So we always define at the very outset how much information will be shared. But it certainly became very useful to understand the dynamics of the team, especially from the leadership's point of view. And it came in handy also for people to be able to make comparisons, understand, who is our other colleagues, what point of view are they coming from, what family do they have. And so we did the same approach as we did in the other, where we did a team offsite team building. and after we did the individual report debriefs. So the team building session, this was also done offsite, and we had a beautiful place near Milan. It was at a what we call an agricoltura, which means an agricultural like hotel. So you can imagine a very beautiful, serene kind of a setting, great food, people very relaxed, just the kind of place that you need where we can help people to take their work mask off and to be themselves, because a true team building requires that. We need to get people in a situation where they're going to be completely involved and engaged in what we're doing, so this is the way that we design the intervention is fundamental to making that happen. So we did the team building. We did problem solvings as we did trust exercises, as I explained in the previous case as well. And then at the end, we did a group follow-up session. Now, fundamental to the briefing that I told you about, the CEO didn't recognize his need as a professional and as the leader of the organization to improve those skills that he had in terms of managing people, his emotional intelligence, his communication, and so on. So it was through the activity that we did in the debrief. So thanks to the objective use of Facet 5, during the individual debrief with the main leader, he came to recognize how he could be viewed by others, things that he didn't recognize, he was unaware, and he asked us to do coaching. So that was the idea that and the plan. We didn't want to, and we cannot force people, at least if we want it to be effective, although some clients will ask us to do coaching, and if it's forced upon them, it doesn't work. It's just like saying you need to go to the psychologist, but if you don't want to go to the psychologist, you're not going to go to the psychologist and you're not going to benefit from it. You need to know or ask and be aware and want to have that kind of assistance. So we were able to get the coach at the CEO was asking to do the coaching, and therefore he was able to and we did find out also through his Facet 5 that he had a very low emotionality, which makes sometimes underneath, when it's below the norm, could make a person less coachable. So there were some challenges in the process, but it definitely wouldn't have even happened, and he wouldn't have made the strides that he did made had we not had the opportunity of using this objective tool. So thanks to Facet 5, not only did he ask for coaching, he asked for assistance. He asked us to come in and shadow his meetings with the team to see if he was doing them well. And he learned immensely from it because we were able to give him feedback about how to run the meetings after we shadowed him on those meetings, and how he could work more effectively with the group. So this was the very fundamental project that we did with this group. This group went through a buyout and a merger, which I'll explain to you in a minute. But I just wanted to share with you what the results were that we were able to get from this transformational change. Obviously, we increased the self-awareness, the trust immensely increased amongst the people. You could see it change in their behavior from the beginning to the end of the project. And also, we even had some of the people who were on the project who were admittedly not happy with their roles, were able to speak their minds and to actually gain opportunities within the organization to develop themselves and to change roles. And so I'm particularly proud of that. The assistant to the executive assistant to the CEO was clearly a person who was very gifted at working with others, and her communication style and so on. And she really had a desire to branch into HR, which she actually did. This person went through a personal transformation herself after we finished our team building and so on. She had her debrief, she had all of these things. She actually lost a lot of weight. When I saw her 2 months later, 3 months, she had lost a bunch of excess weight that she had. She had psoriasis previously. She didn't have any more psoriasis, which is like when you have itchy. She had marks on her arms because of this psoriasis due to stress. So she clearly was thriving because of what happened. At least she attributed. Also, the intervention that we did was a great opportunity. And she was fighting a bias that her own boss had in her about her, that because she didn't have a degree from university, that she could never do more than be his assistant. But she proved through the team building, through her behaviors, through taking on responsibilities, that she actually could do much more. And she became an HR representative within the organization. She became the developer of people within the organization, and she started working. Also, she had very good language skills, so she was working at the level of the German headquarters and started interfacing. So she bloomed, and it was a beautiful transformation to see. Very one of those things that you live for, at least I do, to see the impact that we can have, the positive impact we can have on individuals and on the work that they do. So developing feedback competencies and culture, this was obviously one of the results that we brought, because we did training on that as well. Very important to a group, to be an organization, to be continuously improving, to have a feedback culture. And also in terms of their communication and their belonging, feeling of belonging to the organization definitely increased, and that was also self-reported by the individuals in the group. We reinforced the leadership and the accountability of all people involved, and increased delegation by the CEO. And also by the other supervisors. Improved team meetings because we did that work where we were observing, and so that also increased the productivity of the group. So you can see this integrated approach is fundamental to see real change. We can't just expect to do, it's not a magic wand. It takes time, it takes support to help people to make the transformation that they need to. The most recent update, and this was last year, they asked us to do an intervention with a group of 24 participants. What they wanted to maximize their ability to collaborate with their key stakeholders, because as I said, the organization went through a transformation in terms of integration. There was a merger with another company. And so here we got the chance to work with them on their overall objectives of working on their communication, their presentation skills, because we were asked to work with the group who does the business development to improve also their ability to manage difficult conversations. So their assertiveness, their presentation skills, and so on. Here we decided to apply the use of super skills, because it was very communication oriented. And I tell you this because I will share with you soon an outcome, which for those of you who don't know super skills, I think will be impressed and very pleased to see. Super skills is for those of you who don't know it, is a report that we get from the same input from the questionnaire, Facet 5 profile. But it's a separate report, it's separate information that's provided, and it's very, very useful when we have to work with our clients on improving their communication styles. And in particular, we use the analysis, the information we collected, both in general about the organization as they were updated after their merger, and also to design and to deliver an ad hoc kind of a interaction with them or project with them. And so we designed a 3 full day course on these presentation skills. They had also some online follow-ups with it. We used the super skills at the beginning, at the outset, which they received then to brief on at the very beginning of the process. And many of the participants acknowledged the usefulness of this to raise their awareness about their communication style, because the report provides specific feedback on how they could improve their specific abilities in their communication style, how they could improve, how they could manage, or how they could maybe they have a strength that they should be leveraging. And we always use this sort of a approach, individual development plans, in order to get people engaged and to own their development. So to take action on the things that they learn and to apply them. So we were able to get a very high satisfaction in terms of the participation. The people enjoyed the training a lot, but they also got a lot out of it by applying what they had dedicated themselves to through going through the training. And 65% of the participants actually achieved at least one, if not two, objectives that they had set on their individual plans. And those were concrete steps within their work roles, which had an impact on the organization's work. Now, this is the chart that I wanted to share with you, which was important that came out. This is the overall aggregate data that came out of the analysis for the 24 participants that we shared with them directly from the very outset of the intervention that we did with them. And so what comes up, as you can see, the super skills provides us details on how people show up, how present are they in the conversation, their hyper awareness about the conversation, are they able to decipher or decode what they're understanding, the way that they voice and they monitor, and also the way to monitor the flow of the conversation. So you can see from the data that 52%, so that's a larger than more than half of the group, had to develop this skill in presence. I bring this up to you because at a certain point after the day one of the training, when we did some follow-up, we actually recognized not only that while they were in the meeting or the training itself, that perhaps they weren't fully present, okay, in what was happening. And we could see through following up with them with their objectives and so on, that perhaps what was getting in the way was the area they needed to improve the most. So this often happens. No, how many of you who may be coaches or trainers, somebody comes to you and they have to work on, example, their time management? Aren't they the ones that always like they're canceling their meeting with you, or their own problem gets in the way of them getting help? And so I bring this up because I used this data to help the group to raise their level of focus, that they weren't being as present as they could be because it was endemic in their way of being. And this helped the conversation and helped them to be more hyper-focused on their presence. And they got it. And so that was just a useful thing. So lessons learned before we go into the Q&A session. You might have stuck some, I didn't see the chat grow yet, but I haven't seen it, but perhaps you've put some questions in there or can do so, please. We learned so many things from these two cases, but all of the work that we do, we're always learning. And the first step for transformational leadership and organizational culture is to increase individual and team awareness. It's how we go about doing that, and the use of tools like Facet 5, and also the way that we set up simulations and that they observe their behavior that raises their awareness. And so helping people to move from their level of awareness also to action planning. This is fundamental to get a shift in transformation. Otherwise, the new behaviors will not be practiced. And so we have to communicate on a very high level and be in contact with the entire organization in order to make sure that those activities happen. So those objective tools are fundamental for that awareness and also for identifying the specific changes that they need to make in their behavior. So also learning by example. So the leadership has to walk the talk, and we have to help leadership and support them even more so that they can walk the talk, so that people will recognize and follow suit. And where they are unable, helping to find those in the organization who are become, how can I say, points of reference for the others. So it's a never-ending process. I think that we all recognize that, but to ensure high performance, to manage organizational competitiveness, we have to continuously work on making these improvements. So these were the learnings that and the takeaways that I wanted to share with you from these in particular. I wanted to thank you for your attention, and now it's time for Q&A. So if you have any particular questions that you wanted to ask before you run off, perhaps in the chat, Sonia, you can support me in this. We could even.
Yes, I've sent a message out if anybody's got any questions to put them in the chat, but if they prefer to speak to you, they can
Absolutely, open up the
unmute,
mics.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and have a chat directly.
Absolutely. Please, open to questions. I'm happy to share
Everybody's
knowledge.
all shy.
They're all shy. Well, I was talking for a long time, and they probably got used to that. It's
Oh, we've got a message from Zwinka, and she says, "Can super skills be used as an independent resource, or is it best used in conjunction with an independent Facet 5 profile?"
Well, it depends on the needs of your client, and that's this answer I'm giving you is probably understandable for those of you who work in the way that we do, which is, performance driven. So the answer is not an easy one. First of all, the report can be used just by itself. Yes. But if your client also needs to raise awareness on all aspects of their other aspects of their personality, then it's certainly useful to do it together with the full report. So it depends on the objectives you're trying to achieve on that client. If that would be the more complex answer, the fast answer is certainly you can use it independently.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. We found it very effective. The clients reacted very well to it. It was quick and easy to do. We referred to it throughout the project. We had them look at it often, the results that they had. We shared with them also their aggregate results, which was interesting, as I pointed out, the impact that it had. Great. I'm showing on the screen, by the way, if you like these case studies that you saw and you find them interesting and you'd like to see more, we have a free ebook, and you can get it at this. This you can't get it. I'll have to copy it and put it into. I think I forgot to do that, but I will now put it into the chat for you. So if you'd like to, you can download this ebook that we created. I think it was during COVID. You could see my skills in PowerPoint are excellent. Sorry, I'm trying to copy it so that I could, there we go. So that I could pop it into the chat for you. So I'm getting it, copy, going to the chat. Here we are, opening the chat, putting it in the message so that you could get to the link and just click on it, and then you can get your free ebook. So let me know if you have any issues with that. And I'm going to put up my QR code and my other information here as well. If you want to stay in touch, I'm happy to do so. We have a very wide international network. We like to work with other consulting firms, based on the projects that we have. The Facet 5 family is an incredible family to be a part of, and we have incredible professionals that are part of this. And so we often partner up with our colleagues in the Facet 5 network to be able to meet the needs, the growing needs that we have of all of our clients. So please feel free to get in touch. Send me a LinkedIn invitation. Mention that you are here on the session, and we can connect. I would be happy to do that.